The new servers are finally coming for the Lord of the Rings Online, for everybody else that are not on the legendary servers. In this video, I'm going to have all the details that you need to know, so let's get right into it. So what's the big news? The big news is that from the letter, we knew that we were going to be getting new 64-bit servers for our regular everyday servers, non-legendary. Well, as it turns out, we're getting 4 of them. We're getting 2 for the EU and 2 for the US. One of them being a normal server and one of them being an RP server for both regions. Now, the 2 servers that we're going to be getting for the US are going to be Glamdring and Peregrin, while the ones that we're going to be getting for Europe are Orcrist and Meriadoc. The good news for the RP players in the community is that 2 of those servers, one for each region, will be dedicated for RP. The other ones will be just normal servers. The idea behind all of this updating is that it's going to give the game more stability, better performance, and longevity. So one of the biggest questions in this whole thing is when? So it sounds like actually relatively soon. So they've been testing the 64-bit server architecture for a while now with the Angmar and Mordor servers, and it's been going pretty well. So it's time to roll out to the other servers, right? Not exactly. What's going to happen here is that we're going to get these new servers, and they're not necessarily going to replace the old servers as well. They might over time. As of right now, all the servers are going to remain up. So this is going to be the same 64-bit server architecture technology that Angmar and Mordor, the legendary servers that are currently out, are using. So the idea here is that you're going to get better performance, better memory optimization, and also there's still going to be the weekly restarts for overall stability. Now, what are some of the new features of these shiny new 64-bit servers? Well, a lot of it's the same as it previously was. It's just going to be better under the hood performance. So there's still no level cap, unlike the legendary servers. So it's still going to be a traditional server, like a level 150 server as it stands right now. You're going to have PvMP enabled, just like you currently do. However, there is actually something that is planned for these new servers that because they're going to be condensing the French and German servers into an overall European server, something that they're looking at doing is actually making language-based chat channels that they can do from their side of the game instead of making a user-based one, which is actually pretty cool to help support a more seamless play and a more lively world across the entire game. This also means that they're going to have to do a little bit of work with housing because the overall goal here is to get everybody playing together. So this is kind of their version of a mega server. We had talked about this a little while ago if you watch the live streams. The idea is to get more of the population of the game together. And I know that people are upset about losing their server homes. Some people have been through this already. Me personally, I don't see it as a problem. The bigger problem for me is logging in and not having people to play with, not being able to form groups during the playtime that I have. This will actually expand that out, which is great because if you have people from all time zones on together, it should be making grouping a lot easier. One of the things that they talked about was actually some of the design goals behind these new servers. And basically they boiled it down to 4 things. The first one was budget. Now, originally when we heard that this was all going to be happening, we all just kind of figured that all of the servers would just be upgraded to 64-bit. That's not going to be what's happening here. So what you're going to see happen is we're going to get these 4 new servers, and the old 32-bit servers, they will still hang around as needed. What they also talked about during the live stream is that you're going to see potentially a evaluation period. Essentially later on in the year, they're going to look at it and say, do we need to keep these old servers on, and kind of encourage people to move off to these newer, better performing servers. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't you want to do that anyway? Just get everybody on these newer servers, and you know, it's going to streamline their support, their upgrades. It's going to make it a better experience for players and developers alike. The second big thing they talked about was population. Now, I briefly touched on it before. Population is a big issue with MMOs. You can't have an MMO without the MM part of it. So you need to have players on at all times for the experience of a player to be good. That's why I play personally, is to be able to do group-based content, PvMP. If we don't have a lot of players on, those experiences suffer, which makes me as a player, my experience suffer. So the idea here is to bring all the players together in their regions, and basically, like I said, it's their version of a mega server. It was asked during the live stream if you can actually have more players on these servers concurrently than the other servers, and in a roundabout way they did answer that yes, which is a good thing, because that would have been an issue if it was still like the 2,000 to 2,500 player cap and you're consolidating all of the remaining population onto these servers. That could be pretty bad. On the flip side of that, there's players that, you know, I talk to in Discord or on live streams, and I never get to play with them because they're on different servers. This will give me an opportunity to play with a lot more people, and that actually is pretty exciting for me. The next part of this was fairness. This one was kind of weird for me, but the way they really boiled this down was that the new servers are supposed to provide kind of an equal opportunity for name reservations and fresh starts. This doesn't matter a ton to me outside of the name reservations, because obviously my name is Bludborn on pretty much everything that I touch. So whether it's, you know, my Discord name, my in-game name, my Twitch name, like all of it revolves around that. So if all of this came out and I go to log in and create my character or migrate my character and I can't have Bludborn, that becomes an issue for me. At the end of the day, it's not the end of the world, but it'd be kind of crappy. But the idea here is that VIPs will be able to log in prior to the server opening and be able to make up to 3 characters per name reservation. And then ideally what would happen is when they migrate those characters over, you can delete it and rename your characters appropriately. A lot of questions were asked around the data issue between European servers and US servers and the old servers. So one of the downsides here is that the older European and US server conflicts still exist. So if you're on an EU server now, you're going to have to migrate to an EU server. If you're an EU player that's on North American servers, sorry, you have to still migrate to a North American server. They are, however, still looking at ways to get around this in the future. This is a big deal right now. So they need to get all of this sorted and working and up to speed before they can really look at making that other thing work. So it's not out of the question yet. So it's still possible. But as of right now, if you're on an EU server, your characters will transfer to a EU server. Again, this is also not mandatory. You can stay on a 32-bit server if you want. I want to make that clear too. If you are on a North American server, you need to migrate to a North American server. You always have the option to create a new character on any of these servers and play wherever you want too. That's always there too. There's a lot of questions about the impact the current servers and what happens with that. What happens to my characters? What happens when there's nobody playing on it? So for right now, all of the current servers are staying open, and that's not changing. You'll be able to log in, play, do all the things like you would normally expect. So the way it was explained is they're going to do like an evaluation in the fall around August or September, and basically later on, so in the spring or something like that, they may look at those migrations, because ultimately, like I said, it's about having a healthy population in the game. And if you log on and there's nobody there, what's the point of having that server? You know, get onto one that's has a lot of players on it. Should also be noted really that all of the transfers between all this stuff is going to be free. So a lot of players have concerns about cost and money grabbing and all that stuff. All this stuff is going to be free, so you don't have to worry about that. There are also questions about the Treebeard server, and while there's not a lot of players left on Treebeard, so that may close eventually unless there's a spike in population. But right now, it's not gonna close right now, but it probably will later on. The other current legendary servers, Angmar and Mordor, they're going to continue on. No changes there because they're already on the 64-bit architecture, so they're just doing their thing. And they're different too. So that's the whole Veil of the Nine game mode with the trolls and orcs inside Moria and the Nazgul and wraiths outside and the rest of the world. And that's currently capped at level 60, so that's going to keep doing its progression thing and then go from there. Some of the other big questions, and we touched on it briefly, were the transfer process itself. So the transfers are going to be free and unlimited once the whole system is up and running. So again, right at the beginning, it's going to be kind of limited just because there's going to be a big rush and a big push. Once it's up and running and everything's kind of settled, it'll be free to bounce around between those. We talked about the name reservations already. Basically, VIP players will get first day up to reserve those first 3 names, and transfers will be open to all players on the second day. Housing and kinships will actually work the same way that they do right now. If you were to change servers, basically you're going to get your housing writs back, and then you'll be able to repurchase your housing on the other server. Same thing with shared storage. All that stuff transfers like it does right now if you just transfer servers, or if you play on Bullroar when it's open, you go into the transfer portal, it moves all your stuff over. Same thing here. Everything else as far as like naming and availability, that's all first come first serve. However, they are looking at things like, again, it's, you know, people that have specific names, like streamers, content creators, or if you've been playing for, you know, 18 years at this point and you've had your name and you're very active and somebody goes in to create that name, you can contact customer support and they will ideally help that. So that's a bunch of the upfront stuff that we as players are going to see. Now there's also some under the hood stuff that is ideally going to help us in our experience and how the game plays, how it reacts to us. And so there's some technical improvements that they're adding to these 64-bit servers in basically what that technology is allowing them to do. And really there's 3 major technical improvements that are going into these 64-bit servers. One is the caching technology that's going in there. So basically there's going to be more information of the game that's loaded into RAM rather than having to read off of a disk, or in the server's case an SSD, or whatever they're doing with their VMs. They're also, again, they're increasing that player capacity, so we should be able to have more concurrent players on any given server at any given time. And then using more optimization for how memory is used on those servers for performance in those really resource heavy places. Good example that they gave is Minas Tirith. We've all been there. We've all known how much it lags. There's so many versions of Minas Tirith. So between how it utilizes the caching and memory prioritization, and also the server pinning that they added last year. If you're not familiar with that, server pinning is basically they can say that Minas Tirith or the Ettenmoors is always going to use this server ID. And that way you don't have somebody that's over in the Shire that's a brand new player and that happens to be on the same server as Minas Tirith. Somebody goes into Minas Tirith, it loads all those assets, but this player over in the Shire then lags because they're on the same server. The idea is anybody that is going to Minas Tirith connects to this server. Anybody going to the Shire, it can be whatever it needs to be at that time. So that's a very crude representation of that, but I've seen how that's worked a little bit in some of the other servers where they're testing it, like in the Ettenmoors on Bullroar and stuff like that. and it did seem to be a little bit better performing. One last note about the servers and the transfers and all that kind of stuff. There's been a long time request to be able to transfer characters off of the dark worlds. What I mean by the dark worlds is all those legacy servers like Alendelmere and Vilja and, you know, Rittermark and servers like that. So there are some players that missed those windows of opportunity to move those characters off. And so there is going to be a time once this opens up that you will be able to go back in and get those characters that you maybe missed, or, you know, you weren't playing during those few years when that was available. So that will be back. They did also say that there might be additional servers that launch if queues exceed expectations. I don't see that as being a problem, and I really hope even if there are queues that they don't launch additional servers. This does not work well for any game that does it at any point. It is a growing pain that they just need to deal with, in my opinion, because what happens is you open an additional server, that initial rush fades, and then you are left right back where you started with potentially dead servers. So hopefully they just don't do that, and we can just get these newer servers on and call it a day. Now, the last couple things from this live stream are not related to the server stuff or the migrations or anything like that at all. It's just regular future update development updates. And so a couple things that are coming. There is a deed panel rework that is coming, which I think is greatly needed. The whole parchment look, while it's cool, it's really dated. It needs to be expanded on and made easier to search, to navigate, to find stuff. And so I'm curious to see what that looks like and see how much of an improvement it is. They are actually looking at a potential kinship event calendar feature in the game, which I feel like that's a little too late at this point, because so many people do all of their, you know, organizing on Discord already. But I guess that if it's native in the game and you log in, if you're interested in that stuff, as long as that kinship is maintaining it, then there's no reason to miss events. Again, that's something I'm curious to see how they implement it, and time will tell. Also, update 43 is focusing on the elves. That's scheduled for February. They didn't really dive into too much with that, so we'll just have to see what that looks like on Boror. That's going to be coming soon, is what they said. So I don't know if that's next week or the week after or something like that, but that is where we are with the development updates. So we basically just want to look back to the producer's letter, which was not a producer letter. It was Orion's letter. So there we have it. That is all you need to know with the servers right now. There is going to be an FAQ available soon on the website, and then we're going to probably be looking at transferring servers at some point, because I want to play on these better servers, so my experience in game is better. So let me know in the comments if you plan on moving to one of the 64-bit servers once they come out, and let me know what your thoughts are on all of the stuff that we went over in this video. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for me for this one. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.